My name is Ernestine Evans McWhite, and I'd like to begin with, really how my father, came to Eatonville, because we were living in a small town in Georgia, Reynolds, Georgia, and it was on a farm. Well, we knew that, but my father did not want us to grow up, just being farmers. So it was my older brother had got drafted to the Army in 1937, because he was the firstborn of my brother, my father and mother. And Al had got drafted to the Army. And it was 5 of us left to be brought to Florida. But Dad didn't want us growing up on a farm. He said he didn't want us to be, farmers all our life. And he had heard of Orlando, Florida. So the 5 of us, he put us in a little 2-seat T-Mall car and just slipped away. He didn't even, he didn't tell the man that owned the farm that we were leaving. Just in the middle of the night, he put what we could in the car and drove to Orlando. Because my uncle, I had an uncle that had came to Orlando. And we lived there for about a year. And then my father heard of Eatonville. And at that time, they were selling some property on the west side of Kennedy Boulevard now. And he purchased the property. We helped him build a house, and the rest of the kids. And I would just like to say 3 of us are still living in Eatonville, but 5 of us purchased homes in Eatonville. My sister, oldest sister, which was Broxy Rainey Smith, was instrumental in building the Smith Hotel. And she owned that hotel until her death. And I have another sister, my other sister, she's a beautician. She did hair in Eatonville for about 40 years, but she's retired now. And just coming to Eatonville, it has been a great relationship, finishing high school here. Because I can remember going to the elementary school when you had 2 teachers and a principal. It was 1st and 3rd grade in one class, and 4th and 5th and 6th in the next class. We had 1 teacher and a principal at the elementary school when I started elementary school. Then we came to Hungerford, after you got in Hungerford and everything. But then I got married in I have to think, when did I get married? But I have 5 children, and but my 5 kids, none live in Eatonville right now, but they did great. But I've always, being raised here in Eatonville and living here for all my life, I fell in love with Eatonville. And like I said, I've been part of the Preserve the Eatonville community, since its conception. Because I always, and that's something my father would tell us as growing up, and he lived to get 100 in Eatonville. He was a member of Macedonia Baptist Church, and there's a little story about my dad. As he started getting older, he just, I just want to get him to be 100, 75, 80, Dad gonna die. But really what happened, he got just what he asked for. He died 3 days after his 100th birthday. And the doctor, when we took him to the doctor the 1st of April, he said, we can keep your dad alive with all this stuff. So when we talked to Dad, he said, well, if y'all ain't ready, y'all got the problems. He said, I'm ready to go home. And he died 3 days after his 100th birthday. And with just growing up in Eatonville, it's been a great relationship with, all the people here like Ms. Wells and everybody else that has spoken. Because like I tell people now, when I was growing up in Eatonville, everybody was responsible for everybody's child. It wasn't responsible, but if you saw someone doing something wrong, it was like they had a telephone, there wasn't no telephone, but they was gonna get the message. Because I can always remember Miss Montgomery when we left the school. Miss Montgomery lived on the corner where Wynmoor Kennedy go across, Wynmoor Kennedy in the Halifax. But it was almost like they had a telephone, because when they got in church Sunday morning, they was going to tell Mom what we were doing wrong. And we was trying to figure out, how did Miss Montgomery know what we were doing? And Miss Montgomery, it was almost like a telephone. Walk from school, if you went at a certain spot at a certain time, you had a problem. And like I'm just saying, just growing up in Eatonville and purchasing my home here and working with the organization, the Preserve the Eatonville community, and it's just been with my heart. And what I've done in my community now, and I started 2 years ago. This is my 2nd year. and I was buying them. Usually it's something you can get 24 for $2, and it's called a pop. It's about a foot long. And I was just having them for my grand and kids when they come, to get have something to cool them off. But what had happened when they would come, the other kids in the neighborhood would see them getting the popsicles, so they would come. And so now I'm, giving the popsicles away to the kids. But in the 3 schools that the kids are in Catalina Park are making straight A's. Because last year something just came to me and said, don't give them the popsicles for nothing. So I told them, if you don't make straight A's, you don't get the Smack Price popsicle. So now last year they brought their report cards, progress cards home, and the report card, they're making straight A's. The whole, Catalina Park and the 3 schools. And there's a little story behind that. With the work I do, I was telling some of the people that I worked for, what I was doing. And now I'm not even buying them. They're giving me the money to purchase the popsicle. It's just, they just thought it was a great idea. And I would like to say, with the people that I'm working for, I've been doing this in my home for about the last 25 or 30 years. I have an honor service. And I just started as a fun thing. And I started with maybe about 3 or 4 people. And they start telling other people. And now I have a daughter that helps me pick up and iron. So I've been having an ironing service in my home now for about 25 or 30 years. And I had a friend of mine said, once we was out doing something, she, said, why you tell people you iron? I said, really, it's a living, and I'm making a good living at it, at doing it, so now I have my oldest daughter, she's taking over the business, so it's has been a good relationship with what I'm doing, and growing up here in Eatonville, and like, what's your name? I saw all the kids grow up, it's been a wonderful relationship. And I was telling someone just this morning, with the class of 1953, I guess Stephen always asks about it, the relationship me and her brother had. Because with the class of 1953 at Hungerford High School, those kids all turned out to be great. Because your brother got to be a doctor. John Anderson, who was Mary French, she got to be a nurse. I think about Mrs. Alexander, Eunice, and Evelyn Montgomery, all great kids. Alexander, they were great kids. It was the class of 1953, all of those kids got to be professionals. And that's what I, like I'm saying now, I tell, kids what's going to school. It's not where you come from, it's where you're going. And Eatonville it's really a great place to be, and I'm proud to have been a relative here for the last 50-some years. Thank you.